The blackened world of Zedlara spun beneath the Coalition flagship, its once verdant continents now reduced to charred husks. Ambassador Zithray stood at the observation deck, all 6 of her limbs trembling as she gazed upon the devastation. 3 days had passed since the fall, yet the screams still echoed in her mind, billions of voices silenced in a matter of hours. "Ambassador," a soft voice called from behind, "the Council demands your presence." Zithray didn't turn. Her compound eyes remained fixed on Zylara's ruined surface. "Tell them I'll be there shortly. They've been waiting for 2 standard cycles. Let them wait longer." The bitterness in her voice surprised even her. "What difference will it make? We've already failed." The aide, a slender Tressian with translucent skin, shifted uncomfortably. "The human delegation has departed from their system. The Council wishes to discuss protocols before their arrival." At this, Zithray finally turned. "They answered?" "Yes, Ambassador. Their vessels entered hyperspace 9 hours ago." For the first time in days, Zithray felt something other than despair, a dangerous flicker of hope. She straightened her ceremonial robes and collected herself. "Then I shall not keep the Council waiting any longer." As she followed the aide through the corridors of the flagship, the memory of her transgression weighed heavily upon her. 3 days earlier, in a moment of desperation, she had broken the Coalition's most sacred law, direct interference with isolated worlds. She had sent the message herself, bypassing the proper channels, ignoring centuries of diplomatic procedure. "A humans of Sol 3, she had said into the transmitter, her voice breaking. "We beg your aid." It was treason. It was heresy. But as she watched Zylara burn beneath the Vorak swarm, Zithray knew the Coalition's cautious approach had failed. Their defensive doctrine, their diplomatic overtures, their careful strategies, all had proven useless against the insatiable hunger of the swarm. The humans were different. Everyone knew the stories. On the edge of Earth's sphere of influence, Captain Jake Morrison of the Earth Defense Force vessel Iron Wolf sat in stunned silence as the alien transmission played again through the bridge speakers. "Ila beg your aid. The Vorak swarm consumes all in its path. 17 systems have fallen. Billions dead. Our weapons prove ineffective. Our strongest defenses penetrated. You are our last hope." The message ended with a burst of static, followed by a data packet containing spatial coordinates and rudimentary translation protocols. Lieutenant Sam Parker, the communications officer, looked up from her console. "Sir, I verified the signal's origin. It's definitely not human in source, and it came from over 2,000 light-years away." Morrison nodded slowly, his mind racing. "Send it to Earth Command immediately, La Priority Alpha." "Already done, sir." "And Lieutenant?" "Complete communications blackout." "Yes, sir." Morrison turned to Commander Lisa Rodriguez, his tactical advisor. "What do you make of it?" Rodriguez's dark eyes narrowed in thought. "It could be a trap, or a test, or humanity's first contact with an alien civilization." Morrison finished. "And they're asking for our help." "Why us?" Rodriguez asked. "That's what bothers me. If they're advanced enough for interstellar communication, why reach out to a backwater solar system like ours?" Morrison had no answer. The question haunted him as he stared at the unfamiliar coordinates pulsing on the main view screen. Dr. Amanda Foster, the ship's xenobiologist, spoke up from her station. "The message mentioned Sol 3. That's what they call Earth. They know about us, but we know nothing about them." "Not quite nothing," Morrison said. "They're in trouble, and they think we can help." 72 hours later, the Earth Council convened an emergency session. The circular chamber in Geneva fell silent as General Patricia Williams took the podium, her weathered face solemn under the harsh lights. Ladies and gentlemen of the Council, she began, we face an unprecedented situation. After centuries of searching the stars for signs of intelligent life, they have found us, and they are asking for our help. The chamber erupted in voices. Williams let the commotion continue for several moments before raising her hand for silence. We have analyzed the data packet accompanying the message. It contains basic information about an entity called the Coalition of Allied Species, currently fighting a losing war against something called the Vorax Swarm. The main screen behind her displayed a series of images. Strange ships of organic design, worlds with unfamiliar geography, and creatures of astonishing diversity, some humanoid, others utterly alien. The Coalition claims to represent over 300 sentient species across thousands of star systems. According to their data, they have been aware of Earth for centuries but have deliberately avoided contact due to our classification. Classification? Asked Counselor Abrams, leaning forward. What does that mean? Williams nodded to Dr. Foster, who stood from her seat in the observer's gallery. They classify Earth as a death world, Foster explained. A planet with environmental conditions so harsh that any species evolving there would, by necessity, develop aggressive survival traits. In their taxonomy, humans are categorized as exceptionally dangerous. A murmur ran through the chamber. And yet, Williams continued, they are asking for our help. The question before this council is, do we respond? And if so, how? With medicine, diplomacy, or weapons? Counselor Zhang rose from her seat. General, you speak of weapons as if war is a foregone conclusion. Surely our first response should be one of peaceful assistance, a delegation of scientists and diplomats. I agree that diplomacy must be our first approach. Williams replied, but we must be prepared for all contingencies. The data we've received suggests this Vorax swarm has already destroyed multiple civilizations. If these aliens, who by their own admission are far more advanced than we are, cannot stop this threat, what exactly do they expect us to contribute? Perhaps it's not technology they need. Counselor Okafor suggested, perhaps it's our perspective. Williams nodded grimly. That is my assessment as well. They don't want our medicine or our science. They want our experience with violence, our capacity for warfare. She paused, letting her words sink in. Ladies and gentlemen, they want us to fight their war. The debate raged for hours. Williams listened to arguments from all sides, those advocating immediate assistance, those urging caution, those demanding isolation. Throughout it all, her mind kept returning to the images she'd seen in the data packet. Worlds burning, civilizations collapsing, billions dying. Finally, she called for a vote. The council has spoken, Williams announced after the tally. Earth will respond to this call for aid. We will send a small expeditionary force to assess the situation firsthand. Captain Morrison and the Iron Wolf, having received the initial contact, will lead this mission. She turned to face the assembled counselors. Make no mistake, this is a reconnaissance mission only. Captain Morrison is instructed to gather information, establish diplomatic relations with this coalition, and determine the true nature of the threat. He is not authorized to commit Earth's forces to any conflict without direct approval from this council. As the session adjourned, Rodriguez approached Williams in the corridor outside. General, I've reviewed the coalition's data on the Vorax swarm's advance, she said quietly. If their projections are accurate, and if the swarm continues on its current trajectory— How long? Williams asked. 18 months, maybe less, then they reach Earth. Williams' expression didn't change, but her shoulders stiffened almost imperceptibly. Then we'd better hope Captain Morrison finds some good news out there. The Iron Wolf slipped into hyperspace with a full complement of Earth's finest. soldiers, scientists, and diplomats. Morrison sat in his command chair, watching the stars streak past on the main view screen. The weight of humanity's future pressed down on him like a physical force. "The status report," he ordered. "All systems nominal, Captain," Lieutenant Parker replied. "ETA to coalition coordinates 4 days, 17 hours. Morrison nodded. "And our guests?" "Dr. Foster is in the lab, analyzing the biological data on the Vorak. Commander Rodriguez is with the tactical team, reviewing the battle footage." "Good. Keep me informed of any significant findings." As Morrison left the bridge, he could feel the eyes of his crew following him. They were all thinking the same thing after centuries of isolation. Humanity was about to step onto the galactic stage, not as explorers or scholars, but as warriors. In his quarters, Morrison studied the alien transmission again. Something in the voice, a quality that transcended species and language, spoke of desperation, of fear. Whatever these aliens were facing, it terrified them. And that, more than anything else, terrified him. On the coalition flagship, Ambassador Zithre faced the assembled council, representatives from the 30 most powerful species in the Alliance. Their displeasure radiated like heat from a sun. "You have violated our most sacred principle," intoned High Counselor Veltar, his crystalline form shimmering with anger. "Non-interference with pre-coalition worlds is the foundation of our society. Yet you deliberately contacted the humans, a species classified as extremely dangerous, and invited them into our conflict." "I did what was necessary," Stray replied, her voice steady despite her inner turmoil. "The Vorak have destroyed 17 systems. Our conventional strategies have failed. We need to follow the protocols that have served us for 10,000 years, interrupted Counselor Moore, her tentacles writhing in agitation. "The humans are Deathworlders. Their entire history is a catalog of violence and destruction. Bringing them into the coalition sphere is an unconscionable risk." Stray's patience finally broke. "And what of the risk of doing nothing? Xylara is gone, trillions of lives extinguished. The Vorak advance with each passing day, and our greatest weapons barely slow them down." She gestured toward the view screen, where Xylara's charred remains hung in the void. "Would you rather maintain our principles as our worlds burn, or try something, anything that might save us?" Silence fell over the council chamber. Finally, Veltar spoke again, his tone more measured. "The humans have responded to your call. They approach our space now. The damage is done." He fixed his luminous gaze on Zithre. "You will be held accountable for this breach, but for now, you will serve as liaison to these humans. You brought them here. You will be responsible for containing whatever chaos they bring." Zithre bowed, accepting both the assignment and the implied threat. "I understand. High Counselor." "Do you?" Veltar's voice was soft but penetrating. "These creatures evolved on a world of predators and poisons, of constant danger and death. Their bodies are built to withstand trauma that would kill any of us instantly. Their minds are conditioned for conflict in ways we can barely comprehend." He paused. "And now, thanks to you, they are coming here, to a civilization that has known peace for millennia." "Not peace," Zithre corrected gently. "Complacency. We have forgotten how to fight. Perhaps the humans can remind us. And if they decide to fight us instead?" To this, Stray had no answer. The Iron Wolf emerged from hyperspace into a scene of majesty and terror. Before them hung an enormous space station, a gleaming ring of impossible proportions, encircling a blackened world. Around this central structure, thousands of alien vessels moved in complex patterns. like schools of fish in an endless sea. And beyond them, visible even at this distance, was a cloud of darkness spreading across the stars, a vast, shifting mass that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. "My God," whispered Parker, "what is that?" "The Vorax swarm," Morrison replied, his voice tight. "Dr. Foster, analysis?" Foster studied her readings with growing horror. It's biological in nature, a collective organism composed of trillions of individual units, all networked into a single consciousness. It's consuming everything in its path: matter, energy, information. It's not just an army, it's a plague. "Can it be reasoned with?" Morrison asked. Foster shook her head. "Based on the coalition data, the swarm has never responded to communication attempts. It simply consumes. It doesn't negotiate. It doesn't retreat. It doesn't surrender. Then how do we fight it?" "That's what they're asking us." A signal chimed on Parker's console. "Captain, we're being hailed by the coalition flagship." "On screen," Morrison ordered. The view screen flickered, and an alien face appeared, insectoid with compound eyes and mandibles, yet somehow expressing emotions Morrison could recognize: hope, fear, desperation. "Captain Morrison of Earth," the alien said, its words translated through the data protocols they'd received. "I am Ambassador Zithray of the Alterian Federation, representing the coalition of allied species. On behalf of the coalition, I thank you for answering our call." Morrison stood, straightening his uniform. "Ambassador Zithray, we've come to offer whatever assistance we can. We received your distress signal and the accompanying data. We understand the severity of your situation." "Do you?" Zithray's compound eyes seemed to study him intently. "The Vorax swarm has consumed 17 star systems in less than a standard year. Trillions of lives lost, hundreds of species extinct. Our most advanced weapons barely slow its advance." "We've reviewed your battle footage," Rodriguez interjected, stepping forward. "Your tactics are predictable, formulaic." A ripple passed through Zithray's mandibles, the equivalent of a grimace. "The coalition has not faced a major conflict in over 1,000 years. Our military doctrine emphasizes minimal casualties, precise targeting, and adherence to ethical guidelines established by the Council." "With respect, Ambassador," Rodriguez said, "those guidelines may be getting your people killed." Zithray's posture changed subtly. "That is why we called you Commander. Humans come from a death world, a planet where survival itself is a constant battle. Your species has evolved through conflict. Your history is written in warfare. Your perspectives may be invaluable to us now, too." Morrison exchanged glances with Rodriguez. The implication was clear. The coalition didn't want Earth's technology or resources. They wanted Earth's expertise in violence. "We're prepared to share our knowledge," Morrison said carefully. "But first, we need to understand exactly what we're facing. Request permission to dock with your station and begin a full briefing." "Granted, Captain. A delegation will meet you upon arrival." Zithray hesitated. "There is something you should know. My decision to contact Earth was not universally supported within the coalition. Some members view humans as dangerous, a potential threat rather than an ally. And what do you think, Ambassador?" Three's alien features formed what might have been a sad smile. "I think that in desperate times we must take desperate measures. Welcome to Coalition Space, Captain Morrison. May your arrival mark the beginning of the Vorax end." The transmission ended, leaving the bridge crew in contemplative silence. "Well," Morrison said finally, "it seems we have our work cut out for us." "Sir," Foster said quietly, "she didn't answer your question. about whether they see us as a threat. No, Dr. Foster, she didn't. Morrison turned to the helm. Take us in, Lieutenant. Standard approach vectors, and keep weapon systems on standby just in case our new allies have second thoughts about inviting the Deathworlders to dinner. The Coalition station, Nexus Alpha they called it, was a marvel of engineering beyond anything humanity had achieved. As Morrison led his delegation through its soaring corridors, he felt a strange mixture of awe and unease. The aliens they passed came in all shapes and sizes, some vaguely humanoid, others utterly foreign to Earth biology. Most regarded the humans with what Morrison interpreted as curiosity or caution. A few displayed clear signs of fear. They're terrified of us, Foster whispered as they followed their Tressian guide. Look at how they move away when we pass. Can you blame them? Rodriguez replied. According to their classification system, we're apex predators from a death zone. The briefing chamber was circular, with a holographic display in its center. Around it stood representatives from a dozen alien species, all turning to stare as the humans entered. Ambassador Zithre stepped forward to make introductions. Captain Morrison, may I present the Coalition War Council, such as it is. The next hour was a crash course in interstellar politics and warfare. The Coalition, Morrison learned, had existed for over 10,000 Earth years. In that time, it had expanded to encompass more than 300 sentient species across thousands of star systems. Its founding principle was cooperation through peaceful exchange, a noble goal that had left it woefully unprepared for the Vorak threat. The swarm appeared at the edge of our space approximately 14 standard months ago, explained General Kral, a massive reptilian creature with armored skin. Initial contact was lost with Research Outpost Gamma 9. We dispatched an investigative team who discovered the outpost had been consumed, not destroyed, consumed. Every atom of matter converted into Vorak biomass. The hologram displayed footage from the investigation. A barren asteroid where a station should have been, covered in a writhing black substance that seemed to pulse with malevolent life. We attempted communication. Zthray added. We offered resources, territory, scientific exchange. The swarm did not respond. It simply continued to grow and spread. And attack, Kral growled. The first military engagement occurred 3 months later, when the swarm approached the Tressian colony on Viridian Prime. We deployed a standard defensive fleet. The battle lasted less than 6 hours. The hologram shifted to show Coalition vessels firing energy weapons at the undulating mass of the swarm. The weapons carved temporary gaps in the black cloud. But the gaps closed almost immediately as the swarm surrounded and engulfed ship after ship. We have fought 17 major engagements since then. Kral continued. We have deployed our most powerful weapons, our most advanced tactics. Nothing works. The swarm adapts, evolves, counters our every move. And with each defeat, it grows stronger, consuming our ships, our stations, our worlds. The current projection, Zthray said quietly, is total Coalition collapse within 2 standard years. And then, the swarm will continue to other galaxies, including yours. Captain. Morrison studied the battle footage carefully. Your ships maintain strict formation throughout the engagement. Your firing patterns are sequential rather than simultaneous. Your retreat vectors are predictable. He looked up at Kral. You're fighting according to a manual. The reptilian general bristled visibly. The Coalition combat doctrine has been refined over thousands of years to minimize casualties while maximizing tactical advantage. But you're not fighting a conventional enemy, Rodriguez pointed out. The swarm doesn't care about casualties. It treats losses as resources, biomass to be reabsorbed and repurposed. Foster stepped closer to the hologram. studying the swarm's movements. It's behaving like a neural network, learning from each encounter, adapting its strategies. But there's something more. She pointed to a pulsing node at the center of the mass. What's that? Threy exchanged glances with Kral before responding. We believe it to be a central coordination node, what our scientists call the Queen Mind. It appears in every major swarm formation, always protected at the core. We've never been able to reach it. Morrison felt a cold certainty settling in his gut. That's your target. Destroy the Queen Mind. Disrupt the network. We've tried, Kral snapped. Our heaviest weapons cannot penetrate deeply enough into the swarm mass, and our ethical protocols prevent us from using planet-killer-class weapons that might damage civilian worlds. With respect, General, Morrison said, those protocols may be exactly what the swarm is counting on. A heavy silence fell over the chamber. Finally, Threy spoke. What would you suggest, Captain? Morrison looked at the holographic swarm, pulsing and writhing like a living nightmare. I need to consult with Earth Command, but first, I need complete access to all your data on the swarm, every encounter, every scan, every analysis. And I need to speak with any survivors who've had direct contact. There are no survivors of direct contact, Threy said softly. None. Morrison met her compound gaze. Then we'll have to make sure we're the first. Over the next 72 hours, Morrison and his team immersed themselves in coalition data. Foster worked with alien scientists to understand the swarm's biology. Rodriguez analyzed battle tactics with coalition military officers. Morrison himself spent hours in communication with General Williams, sharing findings and developing strategies. On the fourth day, Morrison called a meeting of the War Council. We believe we've identified several weaknesses in the Vorak swarm, he began without preamble. First, while the swarm as a whole appears invulnerable, individual Vorak units are susceptible to extreme temperatures, specific radiation frequencies, and certain chemical compounds. Second, the Queen Mind, while well protected, must maintain communication with all parts of the swarm. This creates a potential vulnerability in its network architecture. He activated the holographic display, showing a modified battle plan. We propose a three-phase operation: containment, penetration, and neutralization. But I must be clear. This strategy involves tactics that may conflict with coalition ethical protocols. Kral's eyes narrowed. What kind of tactics? Total war, Morrison said simply. No restrictions, no rules of engagement. We hit the swarm with everything we have, from every direction, using weapons and methods the coalition has previously considered unacceptable. Murmurs of concern spread through the alien representatives. The coalition has strict protocols regarding weapons of mass destruction, biological agents, and radiation-based attacks. Threy reminded him. These protocols exist to prevent unnecessary suffering and long-term environmental damage. With respect, Ambassador, Morrison replied. The Vorak swarm is already inflicting maximum suffering and environmental damage. Your protocols are designed for wars between civilized opponents who recognize concepts like surrender and ceasefire. The swarm recognizes nothing but consumption. What exactly are you proposing, Captain? Asked Counselor Veltar, who had joined the session remotely from the flagship. Morrison met the crystalline alien's gaze unflinchingly. Earth is prepared to contribute a battle group under my command, equipped with tactical nuclear weapons, experimental anti-biological agents, and special forces trained in asymmetric warfare. We will engage the swarm at Wolf 359, where your projections show it will arrive in approximately 9 days. And if we refuse these methods, Veltar asked, then we will watch Wolf 359 fall, just as we watched Xylara fall. Zthray said before Morrison could respond. And then Proxima Centauri. And then Sol itself. She turned to the council members. The captain is right. Our ethical constraints were designed for a universe without the Vorak. We must adapt or perish. The debate lasted for hours, but in the end, desperation won out over tradition. The Coalition War Council, by a narrow margin, approved Morrison's plan, with the condition that all extraordinary measures would cease immediately upon the swarm's defeat. As the council adjourned, Zthray approached Morrison privately. You should know, Captain, that in approving your strategy, many on the council believe they have compromised the very principles that define the coalition. They fear that in defeating the Vorak, we may become something else. Morrison nodded solemnly. That's always the risk in war, Ambassador. The methods we use to survive can change who we are, but right now, survival has to come first. And after, when the fighting ends, what then? Morrison had no answer for her. The Battle of Wolf 3159 began at 600 hours. Coalition Standard Time. The combined Earth Coalition fleet formed a spherical defensive perimeter around the system's habitable moon, evacuated days earlier. At the center of the human contingent was the Iron Wolf, retrofitted with Coalition tech and loaded with Earth's most destructive weapons. The swarm approached as it always did, a vast undulating cloud of darkness against the stars, consuming asteroids and survey stations in its path. All ships maintain formation, Morrison ordered from the bridge of the Iron Wolf. Hold fire until the swarm reaches marker Alpha. Beside him, Rodriguez monitored the tactical display. Coalition vessels are in position, Captain, though I'm detecting some hesitation in the Altarian squadron. Remind them of Xylara, Morrison said grimly. That usually focuses their attention. The bridge was silent as the swarm advanced, its front edge reaching the invisible line Morrison had designated as their first trigger point. Marker Alpha reached, announced Parker. Swarm continuing advance at constant velocity. Morrison took a deep breath. All Earth vessels, weapons free, no restrictions, fire at will. What followed was unlike anything the Coalition had ever witnessed. The human ships broke formation, attacking in seemingly chaotic patterns that defied the swarm's predictive capabilities. They fired not in orderly sequences but in overwhelming barrages that saturated entire sections of space. Where Coalition doctrine called for precision, the humans employed devastation. A nuclear detonation detected in Sector 7, reported Parker. Radiation surge consistent with a 50-megaton yield. Biological agents deployed in Sectors 3 and 5, added Foster from the science station. Swarm mass showing signs of cellular degradation. They're adapting, Rodriguez warned. Vorak units are already developing radiation resistance. The biological agents will be neutralized within minutes. As expected, Morrison nodded. Phase 1 complete. Begin Phase 2. The human ships regrouped, forming a wedge formation with the Iron Wolf at its tip. Behind them, the Coalition fleet maintained its defensive sphere, their commanders watching in a mixture of horror and awe as the humans implemented tactics no Coalition strategist would ever have considered. All ships prepare for penetration run, Morrison ordered. Target Queen Mind at coordinates 227 Mark 438. Maximum thrust on my mark. He could feel the eyes of his bridge crew on him. They all knew what he was asking, not just of his ship, but of all the human vessels. This wasn't a surgical strike. It was a kamikaze run. Sir, Parker said quietly. Coalition Command is requesting clarification of our strategy. Tell them to watch and learn, Morrison replied. All ships, mark. The human fleet surged forward as one, accelerating directly into the heart of the swarm. Coalition observers watched in disbelief as the Earth vessels deliberately allowed themselves to be engulfed by the black mass, firing continuously into the surrounding biomatter. Swarm density increasing, Rodriguez reported, her voice tight with tension. Penetration at 62% and slowing. A reroute power from life support to engines, Morrison ordered. We need more speed. Sir, at that velocity, if we impact the Queen Mind, and then we complete the mission. Commander, all hands, prepare for potential collision scenario. The Iron Wolf shuddered as Vorak biomass began to attach itself to the hull, seeking entry points. Around them, other human ships were already being consumed, their captains fighting to the last moment to push deeper into the swarm. A Queen Mind in visual range, Parker announced, 300 kilometers in closing. On the main view screen, a pulsating structure appeared through the swirling darkness, a massive, organic, brain-like formation that glowed with unnatural energy. That's it, Morrison whispered. That's our target. Captain, Foster called urgently. I'm detecting a change in the swarm's behavior. The Queen Mind is retreating. It's never retreated before, Rodriguez said, disbelief evident in her voice. It's never faced humans before, Morrison replied. All remaining ships form on the Iron Wolf, and we're going to end this now. Of the 12 Earth vessels that had begun the penetration run, only 5 remained operational. They formed a tight formation around the Iron Wolf, pushing through the increasingly desperate attacks of the swarm. 200 kilometers to target, Parker counted down. 150, 100. Arm all remaining nuclear warheads, Morrison ordered. Set for proximity detonation. Sir, Rodriguez said quietly, at this range we won't survive the blast. Morrison met her gaze steadily. Make sure it counts, Commander. 50 kilometers to impact, Parker continued. 40. 30. All hands, this is the captain, Morrison broadcast shipwide. It has been my honor to serve with you. For Earth. 20 kilometers, 10. Detonate all warheads, Morrison commanded. The resulting explosion tore a hole in space itself. From the Coalition fleet's perspective, it appeared as though a sun had been born within the heart of the swarm. A blinding flash that momentarily outshone the system's natural star. When the light faded, the Queen Mind was gone, and with it, the coordinating intelligence that bound the swarm together. Status report, demanded Krall from the Coalition flagship. The swarm, it's disintegrating, reported a Tressian officer, disbelief evident in his voice. Individual units are becoming dormant or attacking each other randomly. The network has collapsed. Stray stared at the tactical display, watching as the once invincible Vorak swarm dissolved into disorganized fragments. And the human ships? A long pause. No survivors detected. Ambassador. Three closed her compound eyes briefly. They knew it was a one-way mission. Such tactics, Krall muttered. To deliberately sacrifice ships and crews. To save billions, Stray corrected. Perhaps trillions. She turned to face the Coalition commanders. This is what we asked for when we called to Earth. This is what it means to fight as humans fight. In the debris field that had once been the Queen Mind. A single emergency beacon activated. The barely functioning life pod contained 3 survivors. Commander Rodriguez, Lieutenant Parker, and Dr. Foster. As Coalition rescue ships approached, Rodriguez gazed out at the floating remnants of the Iron Wolf. He did it, she whispered. Morrison actually did it. At what cost? Foster asked, her voice hollow with grief. Rodriguez had no answer. The victory felt empty in the face of such sacrifice. Yet as she watched the Coalition vessels approach, representatives of countless worlds now saved from the Vorak threat, she knew Morrison would have considered it worth the price. The aftermath of Wolf 359 sent shockwaves through the Coalition. While celebrations erupted across thousands of worlds, the coalition leadership grappled with the implications of humanity's methods. Emergency sessions of the High Council debated whether to continue their alliance with Earth or to isolate these dangerous Deathworlders now that the immediate threat had passed. Sthra, vindicated by the victory but troubled by its means, found herself in the uncomfortable position of defending human tactics to a civilization that had long ago rejected such approaches. "We cannot simply thank them and send them away," she argued before the council. "The Vorak swarm may be fragmented, but it is not eliminated. We need the humans to help us complete this fight." "Need them," Counselor Moore countered, "or fear them. You saw what they did at Wolf 359. They sacrificed their own people without hesitation. Their weapons violated every ethical protocol in our charter. These are not the actions of a civilization we should embrace. They are the actions of a civilization that survived." Sthra replied, "Perhaps we have something to learn from them, not just about fighting, but about sacrifice." In the end, pragmatism prevailed. The remaining Vorak fragments still posed a significant threat, particularly to worlds near the edge of coalition space. Earth agreed to contribute additional forces, focusing on ground operations to clear infested planets and stations. On the colony world of New Geneva, Colonel Marcus Stone led a combined human coalition force against a major Vorak infestation. Unlike the space battles, ground combat against the swarm was a gruesome, close-quarters affair. The coalition troops, unused to such brutal fighting, struggled to adapt. "You have to stop thinking of them as living things." Stone instructed a group of Alterian soldiers as they prepared to enter a Vorak hive tunnel. "They're a plague. You don't capture a plague. You sterilize it." Beside him, Sergeant Hayes checked his flamethrower with practiced efficiency. The young soldier had fought in 3 previous clearing operations and had developed a grim expertise in Vorak extermination. "Remember," Hayes added, "they don't surrender, they don't negotiate, they don't retreat. If it moves and it's black, burn it." The Alterians exchanged uncomfortable glances, their compound eyes reflecting the flames from Hayes's pilot light. Stone recognized their discomfort. "I know this goes against your training, but ask yourselves this. If the Vorak had reached your homeworld, would you prefer clean principles or dirty survival?" The tunnel clearing was as horrific as it was effective. Human shock troops led the way, using incendiary weapons and chemical agents to flush out Vorak clusters. Coalition forces followed, securing cleared sections and providing technical support. It was a strategy born of desperation but refined through repeated application across a dozen worlds. On the 3rd day of the New Geneva operation, Dr. Foster made a critical discovery while analyzing tissue samples from destroyed hive clusters. "Hey, Colonel Stone," she called over the secure channel. "I've identified a pattern in the swarm's neural architecture. Each hive cluster contains a miniature version of the Queen Mind, a subnet controller that coordinates local units." "Can we use that?" Stone asked, his voice distorted by his environment suit's filters. "Yes. Destroying these subnet controllers causes an immediate collapse of all connected Vorak units within a radius of approximately 3 kilometers. It's like cutting the head off a snake. The body may twitch, but it can't coordinate an attack." Stone relayed the information to his team leaders. "Focus fire on subnet controllers. Dr. Foster is transmitting identification markers to your HUDs now." The change in tactics dramatically accelerated the clearing operation. Within 48 hours, New Geneva was declared Vorak-free. Similar successes followed on other infected worlds, as human-led teams systematically eliminated the fragmented swarm piece by piece. Yet with each victory came unsettling questions. The Coalition had invited humans to help fight the Vorak. But what would happen when the fighting stopped? Could a peaceful galactic community integrate a species evolved for warfare? Would humans be content to return to their isolated corner of the galaxy, knowing what lay beyond? These questions weighed heavily on Stray as she walked through the memorial garden on Coalition Station Alpha. The garden had been created to honor those who had fallen in the Vorak conflict, both Coalition and human. At its center stood a simple monument, a sphere of black granite representing the Vorak swarm, shattered by a spear of polished steel, humanity's intervention. Stray found Rodriguez standing before the monument, her expression unreadable. "Commander," Stray greeted her. "I did not expect to find you here." Rodriguez didn't look away from the monument. 12,000 human lives, she said quietly. "That's our current casualty count across all operations. 12,000 to save how many? Current estimates place the Coalition population at approximately 200 billion sentient beings across all member worlds." Stray replied. "Without human intervention, the Vorak would have consumed most, if not all, within 2 standard years." Rodriguez nodded slowly. "A good trade, by any mathematical measure. And yet you are troubled. Aren't you?" Rodriguez finally turned to face the ambassador. "Your civilization has spent thousands of years building a peaceful society based on cooperation and ethical behavior. In less than 6 months, we've taught you how to abandon those principles in the name of survival." Stray's mandibles clicked softly, her species equivalent of a sigh. "Perhaps what you have truly taught us is the price of complacency. The Coalition believed itself beyond existential threats. We thought our ethical frameworks could withstand any challenge. We were wrong. And now, what happens after we finish hunting down the last of the Vorak? The High Council is divided on that question." Zithray admitted. "Some advocate for continued close relations with Earth, cultural exchange, technological cooperation, perhaps even membership in the Coalition. Others—" She hesitated. "Others want us gone," Rodriguez finished. "Back to our violent little corner of the galaxy where we can't contaminate your peaceful society. They fear what you represent," Zithray said gently. "Not just your methods, but your adaptability, your willingness to do whatever it takes to survive. These are traits the Coalition has deliberately bred out of its member species over millennia. And yet they saved you." "Yes, they did," Zithray gestured to the monument. "That is why I commissioned this memorial, to remind us of what we gained and what we lost when we called to Earth." As they stood in contemplative silence, a communication chimed on Rodriguez's wrist unit. She checked the message, her expression growing serious. "It's General Williams. The Earth Council has made a decision regarding our continued presence in Coalition space." Stray felt a flutter of anxiety. "And she wants to brief us both. The Iron Wolf 2 is docking now." The briefing took place in a secure chamber on Station Alpha. General Williams, having traveled from Earth for this purpose, stood before a small gathering of human officers and Coalition representatives. Her face showed the strain of months of difficult decisions. "The Earth Council has carefully considered the future of human Coalition relations," she began. "While we value the alliance that has formed in response to the Vorak threat, we have concerns about deeper integration between our civilizations at this time." Murmurs ran through the Coalition representatives. Williams raised a hand for silence. "Earth will continue to provide military assistance until the last fragments of the Vorak swarm are eliminated. We will share tactical knowledge and train Coalition forces in defensive operations. But we will not establish permanent bases in Coalition space, nor will we accept Coalition outposts in our territory." "General," Veltar began, his crystalline form pulsing with emotion. Many on the council had hoped for a more substantial partnership. Your species has demonstrated capabilities that could benefit the coalition in numerous ways, and that is precisely why we must maintain a certain distance. Williams replied, Humanity evolved in isolation, on a world that forced us to develop aggressive survival traits. We have spent thousands of years learning to channel those traits, to balance our capacity for violence with our desire for peace. She looked around the chamber, meeting alien gazes unflinchingly. We understand that our methods during this conflict have been disturbing to many in the coalition. Frankly, they've been disturbing to us as well. Yet you employed them without hesitation, Zthray observed. When faced with extinction, we will do whatever is necessary to survive. Williams acknowledged. But that doesn't mean we take pleasure in it, or that we wish to build a relationship primarily defined by our capacity for warfare. What are you suggesting, General? Veltar asked. A measured approach, limited cultural and scientific exchange, established protocols for communication and emergency assistance, but no integration of military forces, no shared governance, no unrestricted movement between our spheres. William's expression softened slightly. Perhaps in time, when both sides have had opportunity to better understand each other, we can consider deeper ties. The announcement was met with mixed reactions. Some coalition representatives seemed relieved by Earth's self-imposed limitations. Others appeared disappointed or suspicious. Zthray herself felt a complex mixture of emotions, understanding the wisdom in William's approach while mourning the lost potential of a closer alliance. As the meeting adjourned, Zthray approached Williams privately. Your decision is prudent, General. But I cannot help but wonder if it is also influenced by what you have seen of us. A civilization that called for help only when faced with annihilation, then recoiled at the methods required to achieve it. Williams regarded the alien diplomat thoughtfully. Ambassador, throughout human history, we have learned one consistent lesson. Power must be balanced with restraint. My people possess capabilities that your civilization has deliberately abandoned. Introducing those capabilities too quickly, too broadly, could have unintended consequences for both our societies. You fear we would become more like you, Zthray realized, more willing to embrace violence as a solution. And I fear we might become too comfortable as your protectors. Williams countered, too ready to exercise power on your behalf. Neither outcome serves our long-term interests. Zthray's compound eyes studied the human general with new understanding. You are wiser than we anticipated, General Williams. When we classified Earth as a death world, we focused on the physical and psychological traits that such an environment would produce. We failed to consider that surviving such conditions might also require profound wisdom. Not wisdom, Ambassador, experience. William's expression grew distant. Humanity has walked this path before, becoming the protector of those less willing or able to fight. It rarely ends well for either side. The withdrawal of Earth forces from coalition space began 3 months later, following confirmation that the last significant Vorak clusters had been neutralized. The Iron Wolf II, commanded by Rodriguez and carrying the remaining human contingent, prepared for its final departure from Station Alpha. On the observation deck, Zthray stood with Rodriguez watching as shuttles ferried personnel and equipment from the station to the ship. I still believe we're making a mistake, Zthray said. There is so much our civilizations could learn from each other. And we will, Rodriguez assured her. Just at a distance that keeps us both comfortable and safe. Safe, Zthray repeated. Before the Vorak, we thought we were safe. Now we understand that safety is an illusion. Not an illusion, Rodriguez corrected. a temporary condition that requires constant vigilance. The final shuttle docked with the Iron Wolf 2. Only Rodriguez remained on the station. The Coalition has already begun implementing some of your tactical doctrines, Zithray said. Our military forces are being restructured. Weapons development has been accelerated. We are preparing for the next threat, whenever it may come. Good, Rodriguez nodded. But don't lose sight of what makes the Coalition worth defending. Your ethical frameworks, your commitment to cooperation, your 10,000 years of peace. These aren't weaknesses to be discarded. They're strengths to be protected, even as you develop the capacity to fight when necessary. A difficult balance to maintain. The most important ones always are. A signal chimed on Rodriguez's wrist unit. That's my cue, Ambassador. The Iron Wolf 2 is ready for departure. Stray extended 3 of her limbs in the formal Altarian gesture of respect. Until we meet again, Commander Rodriguez, Earth will always have an ally in the Altarian Federation. Rodriguez returned the gesture as best she could with her human anatomy. And the Coalition will always have defenders in humanity, even from a distance. As the Iron Wolf 2 slipped into hyperspace, Zithray returned to her quarters on Station Alpha. There, sealed in a secure container, she kept a data crystal containing Dr. Foster's final report on the Vorak conflict. The report ended with a quote that had become something of an unofficial motto among Coalition military forces. We choose when to stop. 4 simple words that encapsulated the most profound lesson humanity had taught them. That violence, when necessary, must be controlled not by external limitations but by internal discipline. The willingness to do whatever it takes to survive, balanced by the wisdom to know when enough is enough. Centuries later, children across the Coalition would learn of the Vorak War and the mysterious Deathworlders who had come from beyond known space to save them. Some stories painted humans as savage heroes, others as necessary monsters. In quiet corners of academic institutions, debates continued about whether the Coalition had been rescued or corrupted by Earth's intervention. But on 1,000 worlds, in 1,000 different languages, parents still whispered to their children the ancient warning that had kept the peace since the dark days of the Vorak. Be good, little one, or the humans might return. And in the vast emptiness between galaxies, the last fragments of the Vorak swarm drifted, diminished but not destroyed, waiting, evolving, learning. They had encountered something unexpected in the humans, a predator more adaptable, more ruthless than themselves. For the first time in their collective existence, the Vorak had known fear. And in that fear was born a new imperative: avoid the Deathworlders at all costs. The galaxy was vast. There were other civilizations to consume, other paths to follow, paths that led away from Earth.